Thank you for listening to Buffalo What's Next on WBFO. Buffalo What's Next is on summer break and will return with new content shortly. As we take this break, please continue to tune in to WBFO Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. for producers' picks of some of our favorite episodes of Buffalo What's Next.
How can we afford not to talk about race?
About education, about segregation, about humanity.
Since the dawn of this nation, racial violence has existed.
The way we have designed our society has a big hand in what occurred in that Tops Market.
The suburban area, everywhere. We must work and teach our children.
We need to make sure that we put more funding in our programs that help prevent gun violence and more money into art.
If we're going to have some real healing, we've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
On today's episode of Buffalo What's Next, Summertime Producer Picks, we look back at two segments from previous episodes. Thomas O'Neill White speaks with Denise Barr, who was recently heard from a previous episode with Jay Moran, and Kelly Camacho from February 28th of this year. They pull back the curtain on tenant problems at McCarley Gardens. Then we take a trip with Jay Moran to Niagara Falls, where he speaks with Eric Bordner about the SNUG anti-violence program from January 12th of this year. First, Thomas O'Neill White with Denise Barr and Kelly Camacho from February 28th of this year.
Thank you all for being here today.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
Denise, can you give us a little bit of the background regarding the renovations that have been going on at McCarley Gardens?
Right. So what happened is initially there was another organizer who had been working with a resident there that's like family to him. And he called me and said that he needed help because his job takes him out of the city. He travels a lot. And so he wanted me to come and take a look and see if I could weigh in and I could give help with that. And so we did that. Going out there at the beginning, seeing how they had building materials that were laying out where children were playing. It wasn't fenced off. There were a lot of problems just even walking through the units, seeing extension cords and wires hanging over people's windows and doors. It just didn't look right. And so because I have someone that I have a relationship with in McCarley, I went and I had a conversation with Tarmiko, and she was showing me the issues that were happening with her unit. Mm-hmm. And I began to go from there and walk around and have some conversations with some of the other residents through Tarmiko and other people. And at that point, I said, you know, I need help with this because this is going to be a bigger project than I can manage. And that's when I called on Kelly from Citizens Action and asked her to come and to work with me.
And just to backtrack a little bit, this is a $57 million project. Plus. Yes. $57 million that we know that Governor Hochul announced in February of 2022. $57 million renovation project from McCarley Gardens Apartments, a substantial rehab project to an affordable housing development, aiming to improve energy efficiency and the overall quality of life for residents living there. Tarmiko, how long have you lived at McCarley, and when did you find out renovations were being planned?
I lived at McCarley for 17 plus years. They've been doing renovation for on and off for a period of like 10 years. It finally came to head, and when we found out, it was like maybe 2 months into going into it. It was just like thrown on us.
Thrown on you?
Yes.
How did you hear about it initially? That oh, hey, so-and-so is coming to make renovations to your apartment and apartments all over McCarley.
They passed out flyers.
Flyers? They didn't call? They didn't?
No, sir.
So how long until they actually started renovations from when you got the initial flyer?
Probably maybe 3 months.
3 months?
Yes, sir.
And how did they say you need to move your stuff? How did that work? Take me through that process.
Okay, that's funny because I was told my unit was going to be like one of the last units to get done. Mm-hmm. They came in on me. I had nothing packed up. They came in and they just threw my stuff, broke a lot, damaged a lot of my things, and just put it in the basement. I'm living there. We were supposed to go to the hotel. We were supposed to be moved out while they did that. Had our own personal items put up in storage. That never happened.
Who told you that they were going to put you up in a hotel?
The management.
Management?
Yes.
So, no hotel, damaged
yes.
property,
yes.
broken property.
Yes.
How would you describe the living conditions before the renovations began?
I mean, it was a lot of things that needed to be upgraded, but before the renovation, I would say that it was suitable, livable.
Mm-hmm. And you've been there for, what'd you say, 17 years?
17 plus years.
Give me a glimpse of what life is like in McCarley Gardens.
Quiet. It's a family orientation. Everybody know everybody there. Quiet, like I'd say. So
a lot of friends,
yes.
a lot of relationships built up over time
yes.
over there.
Yes.
When other residents that I've spoken to have said that their property was roughly handled by movers. You've said that some even allege they had their property damaged or stolen. Can you talk a little bit more about that experience and what the measures you've taken to, have some recompense to that?
Okay, first of all, they moved, like I say, they came in. I have asthma, I have MS, and I'm cancer. That's in remission. So on top of all of that, I'm living in my house while they're doing this renovation. Dust everywhere. I mean, it was very unlivable. And then at the end, I'm the one that was stuck cleaning. They never cleaned up anything.
And Denise, do you want to add a little bit more to that from what you've heard from other residents?
Well, let me just backtrack for a second, because when I came in and I had conversations with Tarmiko, and I remember her telling me that they were supposed to come and do your unit, I think, in August.
Yes.
And instead they came in June.
Yes.
So while she's emptying out cabinets, they're literally taking them down as she's emptying them, standing there. In terms of talking to other residents, I mean, common complaints. Everybody has the same issues, which makes the red flags come up, right? I mean, if everybody's having issues with paint, everybody's having issues with their windows, everybody's having the issues with their heating vents, common things, then you know that there's a problem.
How would you say the renovations have gone? Are they still being done?
Not to my apartment. I can't speak on what's going on with everyone else's apartment. But as far as I know, my apartment is supposed to be done. But there's a lot of things that's going on with my apartment. Like, for instance, my daughter's ceiling is got water damage. It's cracking. I have cracked floors. My door, I don't have a screen door because when the blizzard came, it broke it off, and they never put another one up. So it's a lot of things that's going on.
Where do we go from here, Denise, with McCarley Gardens residents to get a resolution that's fair to them?
Well, the issue for me is that after dealing with harassment and some bullying tactics from people at St. John's, I was very adamant in the fact that I am going to continue to do the job that I'm supposed to do as the advisory council president. When you have people questioning you and telling you, what skills do you have? What authority do you have to come in and to do this kind of job? I had somebody stop us when we were handing out flyers for a town hall and tell us we're on private property. We're not allowed to give out any information. We have to go through their office, their rental office, and get permission to hand out the flyers. I mean, stupid stuff like that. So, I mean, for me, at the end of the day, I made a promise that I was going to work on behalf of these people, and I was going to help them, and that's what I'm going to do.
We are going to take a quick break, but you are listening to Buffalo What's Next. Thomas O'Neill White here with Denise Barr, the Fruit Belt Advisory Council President, Citizen Action of New York, community organizer Kelly Camacho, and McCarley Gardens resident Tarmiko Carter. We will be right back with you.
Hey, I'm Michael Barbaro, host of The Daily. Every day, around the world, New York Times journalists are digging into the stories of the day. On The Daily, we go deeper with our reporters to bring you more context, more insights, more voices, more of what you need to understand the news. That's The Daily from New York Times.
Weeknights at 6 p.m.
Hey, is this thing on?
Test, 1, 2.
Sounds great. Let's go.
The podcast world is overflowing with more than 750,000 podcasts to choose from.
But for great local podcasts, you can now go to one place, the new Amplified BTPM Pods app. Here you can discover content produced in Western New York and Southern Ontario, our own backyard.
With a wide variety of genres to choose from, there is something for everyone.
Listen to the best independently produced podcasts in the region, anywhere, anytime.
Download the free Amplify BTPM Pods app wherever you get your apps and begin exploring your local podcast community now.
Buffalo is home to many historical treasures, including architectural gems.
Central Terminal affected everybody. Everybody from the common man to the movie star walked this concourse.
Beloved community establishments.
They might get a glimpse to see Lena Horne. They might see Dizzy or Miles Davis, Charlie Parker.
And homes for local sports teams.
When we talk about an institution, Memorial Auditorium was an institution.
The WNED PBS original production, Remembering Western New York, explores some of these iconic structures and their connection to people who live in the region.
There was a time when Buffalo's Main Street was the focus of holiday shopping in Western New York.
Watch Remembering Western New York now on YouTube.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And we're back. Thomas O'Neill White, here with McCarley Gardens resident Tarmiko Carter, Citizen Action New York community organizer Kelly Camacho, and Fruit Belt Advisory Council President Denise Barr. Kelly, I wanted to bring you in to talk about this evening's meeting with Council President Darius Pridgeon. A lot of letters from McCarley Gardens residents being written to the Common Council President. Tell us a little bit about tonight's meeting.
Yeah, so tonight's meeting is definitely really significant for the folks here living at McCarley and the folks that have been involved. McCarley Gardens is a very symbolic area. It is historically for women and children to live affordably. In the city of Buffalo, affordable housing is all but disappearing. You really can't find anywhere for under $1,000 anymore. Places with having pets, it's disappearing. People not being able to afford security and down payments. We don't make enough anymore to be able to afford good housing. And so for me, I got involved in McCarley when Miss Barr brought me in. And really what I was able to see just immediately coming in was that everybody's having very similar problems. They're very consistent across the board, whether it's gapping floors or there are cabinets with screws sticking out, or the vent that was installed on the microwave not being properly installed and therefore causing a draft from outside to directly into folks' kitchens, not being able to heat food. It's just a very poorly done project all across the board. But what I've also noticed is that a lot of residents are uncomfortable with speaking up, knocking on doors. They're hesitant to address some of the problems. Folks will be like, we're not having any problems. But then, you dig a little more and it ends up being like peeling paint and mold in the bathroom. It's just so many different things all come out, and people are afraid to speak up because this is Section 8 housing for the most part. It is subsidized housing. It's affordable housing. Folks can't afford to live anywhere else.
Right.
So a lot of folks feel that if they complain, they're going to get kicked out and they're not going to have anywhere else to go. folks like Tarmiko that were living in open renovations, some people ended up having to live in their cars. It's all very inappropriate. Like, this is a quality of life issue. Being poor does not mean you don't get to have a safe and healthy place to live. And so that's why we took it to Council Brigid tonight. We want to feel that folks have a way to voice their concerns and that they're not going to be penalized. And so bringing residents together, there is an exceptional amount of strength in numbers. And so tonight we have our letters that have been signed by residents that we're going to be addressing. And then we're also going to have some residents give testimony about just what living here at McCarley has been like. And so I think it is going to be a very significant meeting to be in attendance for.
And I wanted to ask the three of you also about tonight's meeting. What would you like to hear from the Common Council president?
Well, I don't, it's not the issue with the Common Council president. It's the issue with the developers and the people that have been doing the renovations. Because, hearing that people have been told consistently by management, by the project manager, that they ought to be grateful. You ought to be grateful that we're doing anything for your housing. I mean, very inappropriate conversations that have happened, a lot of bullying tactics, and I want them to, all I said from the beginning is I want them to do right by these people. Whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing for them, do that. If you would just do right by these people, I can stand back and go on and do the other things I have to do. I'm not doing this because it's fun. We're doing this because it's necessary. We need to make sure that these residents are taken care of.
Kelly?
Management has not been receptive to our being present and working with residents. So I think our biggest takeaway for tonight is the expectation that management will show up, and they will show up in good faith, ready to do work for these residents.
And it's St. John's? That's the...
So there is a third-party LLC management company, but it is directly presided over by...
Oak, Michigan?
Michael Chapman and St. John's.
St. John's. Okay. Where do Oak, Michigan and New York City based BFC? Where do they stand?
When we have had interactions with the developer, there wasn't much accountability. It was definitely a lot of wanting to do the right thing on paper, but seeming very out of touch. They are a Brooklyn-based developer. So every week, what is his name? The project manager. He gets flown in every week, flown back out when the work is done.
Very nice.
So something just very out of touch, doesn't know what the city of Buffalo needs at all.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference when you're dealing with people who've never really had that Buffalo experience in terms of really living here.
Yeah, no stakes in the community.
They come in to do the job and then they leave on Fridays and they go back to, another place entirely. And so how do you have any kind of attachment or feeling for what needs to be done if you're, coming from somewhere else? You're just there to do the work that you're told to do and move on.
So how do we hold these people accountable?
Well, how we hold them accountable is that we contact these residents, continue to have the conversations, stand our ground when we're being bullied. We take these letters to Common Council and have them filed and recorded and have councilmen step in to be the mediator. I'm not trying to fight with anybody. I just want them to do the job that they were paid to do.
$57 million at the very least.
Yep.
At the very least for this project. And given what residents have said about the work that was done, do you believe the entirety of the $57 million was, at the very least, was spent specifically on renovations?
I believe that they have cut a lot of corners because they're trying to pull most of that money into phase 2. That's what I believe. I believe that that is going to be their jewel, and that's what they're moving towards. They want to wrap up on the work that has been done, whether there's been renovations that they were supposed to come back and finish or not. They're trying to move on to that phase 2 tower so that they can continue to make the money and build their profit off of that.
Okay, so let's get into phase 2. What is phase 2? What's being done at St. John's Tower?
Well, that's interesting. They had a meeting. They called a meeting, public meeting with the residents. I did go, and I hear, all the lovely stories about how they're doing great things with these residents, and the work is going terrific. And they're looking to do this phase 2 tower where the people that have been there, like Charmico, for this period of time, are not even going to have access to those amenities in the tower. Brand new gym and state-of-the-art kitchens and all kinds of other things that they're looking to do there. And the people that have been there won't be able to use them. Now, automatically, that's not right. Parking, the city, as far as I know, has blocked them because of the way that they have looked to structure the parking. That's not even something I had to step in and I had to try to work on. So if the city is pushing back, that tells you that there's another issue there that's going on.
You mentioned doing well by the people, that's what needs to happen.
Yep.
Well, is there specifics to what that may look like?
The specifics for me are that the people that are living in those units are happy with the work that's being done. At the end of the day, once those doors are closed, they feel comfortable where they are, and the money has been spent the way it's supposed to be spent. That's what it means to me. Now, for someone that's living there, it may be a different situation.
Yeah, Tarmiko, let's get your opinion on that. Go right ahead.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What? Denise mentioned doing well by the people, doing right by the people. What would you like to see moving forward? How would you like your concerns about what happened in your living space addressed?
Well, what I would like to see is, I would like to see the job done the right way. Not a rush job, not an improper job, a job done the right way. I felt that they just came in and they rushed it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that no one should have to live like that, like Denise says. We shouldn't have to live like that.
And Kelly?
Yeah, so for me, I definitely feel that McCarley is a very important symbolic location. It's affordable housing. It has highway on one side, parking garage on the other, and then medical campus on the other. I think that McCarley Gardens needs to be insured as affordable housing for the future. I would love to see McCarley Gardens always being an affordable housing complex. One of my fears locally is that it seems like McCarley Gardens is being set up for student housing. Right. There's not a lot of money in affordable housing. You're not making a big bag off poor people, but there is a bag to be made. And so for me, with the downsizing of some of what these apartment sizings are looking like and the way that residents are currently being treated, it seems like they are trying to get as many residents out as possible. And I believe that either whether it's through selling the gardens or through just including student housing, whatever the shift may look like, I believe that McCarley Gardens is on its way to becoming student housing. And with, again, affordable housing disappearing in Buffalo, McCarley Gardens is a very symbolic place for what Buffalo is going to become.
Right.
Are we going to allow it to gentrify, or are we going to allow it to be there for the people?
And in all fairness, let me just say, I still have a member from the McCarley family that's living in the Fruit Belt. So how much more meaningful is that for us to know that that legacy is still happening in our own neighborhood? It's not right that they're not, I don't think that they even are aware of how McCarley Gardens came around, how that whole thing got structured in the first place. And, if you're not even investing in the history of Black Americans in this city, that speaks volumes, right?
Right.
I mean, it's very inappropriate. The whole thing just feels bad.
That was Thomas O'Neill White with Denise Barr and Kelly Camacho from February 28th of this year. We'll be right back with Jay Moran speaking with Eric Bordner from January 12th of this year.
I'm Kraus Shalahorn with Mindful Music. Join me for thoughtful and in-depth conversation with my many different guests from around the region and the world as they discuss how music helps and heals in times of stress and everyday life. Listen to Mindful Music Saturdays at 4 p.m. right here on WBFO, your NPR station.
Watch the WNED PBS original production, The Great Erie County Fair.
We were brought up on the fair. You know, that was the place to go, the thing to see.
Celebrate 175 years of the excitement and competitive spirit of the fair. The Great Erie County Fair, now streaming on YouTube and the PBS video app.
The warrior tradition tells the inspiring, heartbreaking, and largely untold story of Native Americans in the U.S. military. Why would Indigenous men and women put their lives on the line for the very government that took their homelands?
A lot of people ask, why did you join the white man's war?
This is our home. This has always been our home. And part of the commitment to protecting and defending your home led to military service.
Hear stories of service and pain, of courage and fear in the warrior tradition, now streaming on YouTube.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
Here at the Community Missions on Buffalo Avenue in the city of Niagara Falls to talk about the SNUG program in Niagara Falls, a recently started program. With us from Community Missions, Eric Bordner, the Vice President of Specialized Services, and Hassan Ford, who is the Program Manager for SNUG. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Let's first get into this idea about what SNUG is. Let's talk about what that specifically is and how it works.
Okay, so SNUG is spelled guns backwards. What we want to do is bring hope to our community. Like today, SNUG, when it comes to SNUG, we want people to understand that we are here for a purpose, and we are here to bring change. What we do is we work to reduce gun violence in our community by mediating conflict. We work with the highest individuals who are the highest risk of shooting or being shot themselves.
What about in terms of the problem itself? Gun violence, we can make it a very general problem. We could talk in Buffalo about gun violence. We could go to the Bronx. We could go to other cities around the state in that regard. But what about here in Niagara Falls? How specific can we get into what the issue is really about locally here?
Well, like any disease, we look for a cure. Niagara Falls SNUG will be a part of the cure. By mediating conflict, we send credible messages into our communities, people who have credibility with other people in our communities, to mediate conflict, to talk with people, to find out how we can make it better when it comes to the violence that's in our community.
Well, Eric, what about from a community missions standpoint? If you guys have a lot on your plate, and this is my first time to your facility here, and I can see, and this is an active place for sure here. Now going into this SNUG program and taking that on as well, what's behind that?
I've been around for about 15 years with community missions, and when I started, I specifically started bringing reentry services to the area, and that was geared towards individuals. I like to call them returning citizens, returning to the city of Niagara Falls. That's another big state initiative, reentry services, having things in place. And over, the last decade, it's kind of grown our reentry services to various different programs, to some specific housing programs, to workforce development programs geared strictly towards returning citizens. When it was announced by the state that there was monies available for SNUG in Niagara Falls, recognizing that it is an issue. It is an issue in our city. Unfortunately, it's an issue in our city. And because Community Missions has the partnerships with providers, has the credibility in the community, we've been around for so long that, the community knows us. The community knows that if we're involved, that we're going to do everything we can to do what we say we're going to do for whatever program we're running. So to me, it was a no-brainer. It's something we had to address in our city. It was Community Missions. It was the perfect agency to do it. We had kind of the outline in place anyways for a lot of the things that SNUG does.
That's right.
So it just seemed like it was a perfect fit for us.
Absolutely.
If one person gets wounded by a gun, that's a bad thing. If somebody gets killed, that's worse. But are there incidents of recent times here in Niagara Falls where the problem hit a nerve maybe a little bit more? Can we maybe talk about examples of that might reach that?
I think you can't pinpoint it, because I think every time somebody get hit by a bullet, or every time somebody die from a bullet, it hits a nerve. So you can't pinpoint just one, because everybody's lives matter. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't. I can't tell you that. And then and when it comes to the victim's privacy, I don't want to disclose that as well. Sure. But I can say that when it comes to the issues in our community, we're definitely working on it. So. Okay.
Just to follow that along though, just a little bit. Is there a section of the community that's being more impacted than others when it comes to gun violence?
Absolutely. We have, again, we have a high-risk area that we work on daily. We canvass that area daily. We hand out flyers in the area daily. We befriend people in that area daily. We have this thing what we call a vetting system, and what we do is we befriend people for about a month and a half, and then we bring them on as participants. And as a participant, it's a program that they will come into where they will learn different job skills, maybe get a resume, get back into school. So it's like putting down the guns and picking up something else. When you put anything down, you have to fill that void in. But we want to fill that void with something good instead of something bad.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Eric.
I mean, Niagara Falls is such a small community. Although it's considered, I guess, a major city in this area, it's still a very small city. It's a small community. It's a community that's largely based up of, poverty. And that's, where we are centralizing our services, where we're focusing, targeting, it's right in that area of the most underserved individuals, because that does lend a lot into gun violence and the gun violence that we're trying to target specifically.
Right. And also, when I talk about community, I'm not talking about the black and brown. I'm not talking about the white or the native or even the Hispanic. I'm talking about Niagara Falls as a whole. That is our community. So when we work on our community, I talk about that. When you talk about neighborhoods, that's something different, right? Sure. But when it comes to our community, we want to try to bring the beauty back into our community, especially Niagara Falls. I mean, we're talking about a wonder of the world versus Niagara Falls, Canada, to America. We want to bring that beauty back over here as well. So.
Right. And then take me, Hassan, if you can, or Eric, about, you use the word canvas. Canvas. When we think of canvas, politicians going door to door and trying to drum up votes.
Exactly. Please, yeah. So what we do, we have our palm cards, and we have also cards. We walk door to door. We knock on some doors. Some people are reluctant to open their doors. We leave cards maybe on their inside the door slot. We're working on door knockers at this time to just hang door knockers on the doorknobs. We stop at stores. We talk to business owners. So we're footing out there in the cold right now. As a matter of fact, I got to get our team some hand warmers, but it's definitely a job, man. So we're very passionate about what we do, and I'm so grateful to Eric because of his passion. I guess people attract who they are to them, right? So. He must have attracted me to him, and the team I attracted is like me as well. So we're all like similar, like when it comes to that passion and want to push forward and want greatness to come out of things that are so that doesn't seem correct. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
One of the important things to note that fall in line with the canvassing is the team, our outreach team. Hassan says our team, our outreach team, who are so important in all this. They're made up of members of the community. In order to be a part of that team, you have to be from this community.
That's right.
You have to have a level of credibility in the community.
How do you expand on that credibility? What does that mean?
So if they need to be recognized in the community. They need to be recognized amongst the population we're targeting. So it could be individuals that we hire that have a history of gun violence, that have somewhat of a criminal history, but they don't necessarily have to have that, but they have to be recognized. So if they show up on the corner of 19th and whatever, and there's a group of young individuals there, that those young individuals recognize them as somebody that they can kind of jive with and understand. Because there's a difference between even myself walking up on a group of young kids compared to Hassan. He's got more street credibility than I do. I have a different kind of credibility in the community. So that's why it's so important to have a team that we call credible messengers. They're our outreach team, but they're credible messengers because they have a message to share, and they have to have credibility to the people we serve.
Right, and the majority of the teams across the state do have a past, but their lives have been completely changed around. And that's what makes them so credible in the streets today. I remember you like 5 years ago, man. How your life was. Wow, look at you now, right? You was a thug. You was a straight gangster. Look at you now, man. How did you do that, right? And then so that's the opportunity for me to start vetting that person and bringing them close to me. Let me talk to you for a second. Come here.
We have to take a short break. We'll be right back with more Buffalo What's Next on WBFO.
Check out the Our Town series produced by WNED PBS, but captured by community members on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel.
Ellicottville is a town of variety, not only in what they have to offer, but the people.
The Burlington community is becoming increasingly multicultural, and the library is reflecting that.
Parks and playgrounds have been what makes the town of Tonawanda a great place to grow up.
The series began in 2003, but it's making its debut on YouTube now. Although some of the businesses and people may have changed over the years, the spirit of these wonderful towns remain the same.
We just didn't realize what we had in our own backyard.
We need the next generation to protect it and carry on.
Learn about Jamestown, Burlington, Welland, East Aurora, and more than a dozen other beautiful communities in our region by watching the Our Town series now on YouTube.
I would live there.
WNED Classical has been conducting interviews of their own on YouTube with the classical music community. Have you ever wondered what goes into the performances you hear on WNED Classical? Head on over to our Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube page to see the collection of interviews that we've orchestrated. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
We're talking with Hassan Ford and Eric Bordner from Community Missions. Eric's the Vice President of Specialized Services. Hassan is the program manager for their SNUG program here in Niagara Falls, a gun violence reduction program. I'm really interested in those reactions, Hassan. Like you said, okay, there's a group of kids on a corner, and you want to make sure that you interact with them to a certain extent. Talked about how that experience is.
We do all the time. Again, so we're on the corners. As a matter of fact, we have one corner that's constantly flooded every single evening. People are standing around. I'm sure there's different conversations that are happening, but we try to blend into it, and they know who we are, and it makes them uncomfortable. I get it. We're here. We're not the police. We're definitely not the police.
Right.
We're not. We're a different entity from that. But when we walk into those areas, they know that we mean business. They know that we're here to make change. So they listen. They want to know about us. They want to be a part of it. How can I be an outreach worker and so forth and so on, right? So it makes a difference, us standing in those corners, man. It makes a major difference.
It does. I think just to follow that then is, if you're there, by being there, eventually you get a certain level of acceptance.
Absolutely. Well, we get that level of acceptance regardless, but by them seeing the uniform that we're wearing, even more so, and what we're doing, even more so, absolutely.
I think you made a good point when you said eventually. This isn't something that happens on the first visit or the second visit. And one of the things that's important is to keep being there, to keep coming back,
consistency.
because that builds trust, and that's what drives everything in this is trust. If they can get trust from the participants, they're more likely to pay attention to what they say.
That's right.
A lot of the individuals we serve have heard over and over in their life that I can help you, I'll help you, and then there's that help's not there, not the next week. And the one important thing that we talk about all the time, and we live by as SNUG in Niagara Falls, is if you say you're going to be there, you're going to be there. And how are you going to be there? Is to be there every day, so that same individual sees you every day and says, for the first 5-10 times, oh my God, they're back, how annoying. But then that 11th time, they might say, wait a minute, they do care. They do really care about us. And, I want to know what this is all about, and I want to build a relationship with them, because there's so much that SNUG can do to help our community, and there's so much that we have planned to do that can help the community, and it really goes back to eventually gaining the trust from the community.
You just took me back a bit when you talked about that consistency piece about saying you're going to be there and you be there. Because I can remember being as a child waiting for my father to come home. He's supposed to come home, but he never does come home. And the way I felt as a kid, that disappointment, you know what I'm saying, that no one's really caring. And so I kind of felt away just now when you mentioned that just now. It took me back there, right? So I'm sure that's what they're feeling is also. So that's why we want to be consistent. That's why we want to continue to keep coming back. We do the same areas every single day.
Really?
Every day, because this is our high risk areas. So we're there every single day just to spread the word, man, and spread some love. So yeah.
You get to know people on a first name basis?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they know you.
Absolutely. Well, for me, I'm called Unc. Me and another guy, they call Unc. Some guy call me Big Broke. I'm a big guy, but most of the guys call me Unc.
Okay, all right, for sure. What do we understand about? And I keep saying kids. But I just have this image in my mind. Right. Young folks who just, whatever reason, things aren't going well at home, not going well at school, whatever, and they find their way into gun violence. What do we know about these kids? And again, like before, you said you don't want to be talking about victims and things like that. But what are some of the experiences that you're hearing about?
Well, I know per CDC, the Controlled Disease Center, the ages between 15 to 24, they are high-risk kids, right? They make up 10% of the population, but they also make up 63% of the homicides in America, right? So those are the areas that we're working on right now. We're setting up an assembly with Niagara Falls to hit 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders. We're going to go in there and for an hour each class and talk about who we are, what we do, and then our individual stories, because they're pretty powerful and impactful as well, where we were and where we're at today. So.
Do you mind sharing maybe one of those individual stories? If it's not yours, maybe one of your...
Well, I wouldn't share theirs on disclosing.
Okay, fair enough.
But for me, I was an ex-drug addict for 20 years. I robbed Sears in Niagara Falls about 15 years ago for trying to get drugs. Eric known me for coming through community missions for about 15, 20 years as well. Being homeless, eating out of garbage cans, eating off the streets, sleeping in vacant alleys, vacant buildings, going crazy in the streets from overdosing. And today, I went through Narcotics Anonymous and asked God help. I prayed and asked God to deliver me. And today it's been, I have 10 years clean. I'm actually a business owner today. I'm gonna plug myself right now.
What's the business? If you're plugging, let's plug.
My wife and I own Enchanted Florist in Lewiston and Niagara Falls. I also own a gym called Body by Ford. And then Eric saw fit to hire me as a program manager for this program here. So my life is way different. So that's why I'm so passionate about people telling me, oh, man, it's going to be the same. Nothing's going to change. It will change. If you put the energy into that change, it's going to happen. But if you don't do nothing, if you don't change nothing, nothing's going to change. So you have to make that first step into making a change.
Hassan, that's a great story for sure. Can you reflect? I mean, you said going through Narcotics Anonymous,
yes.
and sounds like divine intervention as
Absolutely.
Well. But what was the difference between Hassan before that and who you are right now?
Hassan before that Hassan had a lot of self-pity, self-centered, selfish. I felt like the world owed me everything and they owed me nothing. I was lazy, I wanted things the easy way. I just didn't care about life in general.
You're listening to Buffalo What's Next. More to come right after this on WBFO.
Not sure what you want to watch tonight? We've got you covered. Visit WNED.org/TV schedule to see what's on WNED PBS, WNED Create, and WNED PBS Kids. Click the Primetime button to see what's on tonight. You can also search for your favorite programs in the search bar or look for programs by date and time. Visit WNED.org/TV schedule and start making your viewing plans now.
Watch Buffalo's Voices of Steel on YouTube. The original WNED PBS production captures the legacy of the steel industry in Western New York through the voices of the people who worked in the mills.
Anybody who never saw the steel plant in operation missed something. I told my kids that. They really missed to see what it was like to make steel.
Through remembrances of the workers, Buffalo's Voices of Steel showcases the pride Western New York still feels about its steel-producing past. Watch it now on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe while you're there.
Take your favorite radio stream anywhere you go with the WBFO The Bridge app. Search the playlist for that great song you just heard. Use the Talk to Us feature to tell us what you think about The Bridge, and press the red Join the Crew button to become a Patreon member to support college radio for adults. Find the WBFO The Bridge app wherever you get your apps.
Buffalo Toronto Public Media's unique and valued programming on WNED PBS, WNED Classical, and WBFO make us a perfect partner for any company interested in making a real difference in our community. Your support has the power to associate your business with one of the most trusted brands in North America. Call me, Sylvia Bennett, to find out how you can make a difference. 716-845-7005.
Listen to Buffalo What's Next weekday mornings at 10 a.m. on WBFO or on the WBFO app. Use the Talk to Us feature to leave your questions and comments.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
We're with Hassan Ford and also Eric Bordner from Community Missions. Eric's the Vice President of Specialized Services. Hassan is the Program Manager for their SNUG program, the Anti-Gun Violence program here in Niagara Falls. Relatively new. It was a program that was here, went away because this is a state-funded program. And this is an interesting part of it. There is a level of accountability involved here. If you don't get the results, you don't get the funding.
Absolutely. There's certain metrics that we have to follow, certain amount of participants that they need to provide services to. We have to do community events every month. We have to have a community event. We have to have a participant event every month, and those are a little different from each other. Because we're so new, we're still building our participants. Really come February is where they will start pressing a little harder to start rounding up participants. And those participants are the individuals, like Hassan had said a little bit earlier, individuals who have the highest propensity to gun violence or be a victim of gun violence. Mm-hmm. Like today, we are hosting our open house, and that's our large community event for the month. And
this is a relatively new outreach center, is that right? Or
it's our brand new building on Pine Avenue in Niagara Falls, which basically intersects our target area right down the middle. And so we're right in the center of the mix on where there is the highest amount of and highest risk of gun violence. And we're really just trying to show off our new building because that's going to be important down the road for participants and for the community to know that we're there right in the heart of the things. Our new building will be able to be used by participants, by the community. So we want to say, hey, we're here, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to try to do it. So there's a lot of things that the state really pays attention to this. This is a big push from New York State for obvious reasons.
Right.
Like you had said that, New York State, no matter, name a big city and there's likely an issue with gun violence in that city. Niagara Falls is no different than the Bronx, maybe in size and in amounts, certainly, but that's about it. But if you consider our size and our amounts of gun violence, it adds pretty close to the same. But, there is metrics we have to follow. There is, money that needs to be spent, and it needs to be spent on the right things, and that's events with the community. That's taking participants to a football game, a hockey game, a concert.
Change,
showing them that there is a life outside of the streets and playing with guns.
Absolutely.
And because a lot of our individuals that we plan to serve, they don't necessarily know that there's a difference. Hassan's story and many other people's stories of going from a tragedy to triumph, not every individual has that, but they don't know that. They don't know that they have worth outside of what they're doing, whether they're in a gang or just running with a crew of individuals.
That's powerful.
They don't know that, and that's what we're here to do, and that's the driving force of SNUG, is to let our community members know, specifically individuals with the propensity to be involved with guns in some way, that there is changes that can be made, and we're here to help. We're here, and we're going to keep being here to help you.
Ironically, again, he keeps saying something that triggers things in me. Ironically, the building that we're in was a bakery that got robbed constantly. So we happen to be a gun violence prevention program. We're in that building now.
Wow. Talking about going full circle.
Right.
For sure. There's a narrative out there, and I'm just curious from guys who are now seeing this on the ground level, that the problem has gotten worse in New York State. I guess that's been the narrative. Do you find that, or is it just kind of the same as it's always been, or is it getting better? How do you rate things now?
Well, so I did a training, and it talked about people are saying that people are dying daily, there's shootings daily, and we're in the midst of it. There's no shooting daily. People are not dying daily. Maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once every 3 weeks. So, some people take things out of character. Some people
absolutely,
exaggerate.
and that's why I wanted to get this from you.
A lot of stuff is exaggerated, especially when it comes to misinformation. So, misinformed people misinform people, right? If I get wrong information from you, I'm going to give it to someone else. Now we're all misinformed, right? So, I think that's exaggerated.
Okay, and then I was curious also about this. So, when there is a shooting, is that now all of a sudden a target for you?
Absolutely, yeah. When there's a shooting, we wait about 2 days, and then we set up a shooting response team. That's made up with some clergy people in our community, community members as well, and then the SNUG team, which is all of us. We on the bullhorn, we're shouting out, "Stop shooting, we want to live." And they repeat what I say or repeat whoever's saying that. No more mothers crying, no more babies dying. They repeat the same thing back and forth. We're there for about 20 minutes, man, and it's powerful and it is strong and it definitely works.
Do you feel, are you seeing kids come to your message? You're sensing that this kid who you met 2 months ago on the street corner hanging out with his friends, all of a sudden maybe he's finding Uncle a little bit more of an attractive person to talk to?
So again, we're just starting out right now.
Gotcha.
Although we're in the schools right now, the kids are like, want to know who we are and what we do in the schools at this point. But as far as being on the streets, not
Gotcha.
yet. But I'm sure in others, SNUGs in some other cities, I'm sure that's what's happening right now. Yeah.
Okay.
It's important to add to that, when there is a shooting, one of the other important things is quick response. And that's because our team, the SNUG program, can offer a lot of things, not just to the victim, but the victim's family as well. There's a lot of things that, our social worker and our team can help with, both financially, support, emotional support, and, but the financial piece is a big thing. For an example, funeral expenses is something that we could possibly help with. Obviously, nothing's a guarantee in this world when it comes to money and availability of money, but it's always something that we can help with. Relocation, Hassan had talked about. The other important part of quick response is the mediation piece, to be the eyes and ears. If there's a shooting, our team should be responding to that shooting immediately, to the scene, to the hospital, because they want to be there to support the families, the friends, but they also want to be listening for, is there a thought of retaliation?
Absolutely.
And how do we mediate that? And they're trained in mediation techniques on how to mediate that, and talking to the other side that may or may not be involved, but associates or family might think they were involved, saying, hey, this can't get out of hand. We can't let this get out of hand. Let's figure out what the root of the problem is and address it.
Absolutely.
So there's so many important pieces for SNUG, from the time a shooting happens to well after. Our team attended a funeral of a recent homicide victim, and the family was so gracious to know that they were there to support them. One of the individuals on the team knew the family, but most of the individuals didn't really know them. But for the family to see that, holy cow, there's, this SNUG, they were there. They're, there to show their support.
Absolutely.
And that's a big piece of that, is support for the families, for the victims, while trying to do our part to stop any further violence associated with that.
Yeah, so that's that hope piece again that we want to bring to the community, because a lot of times people feel hopeless. So when they see our logo or see us in the community, there's hope. So yeah.
You talked about the Outreach Center on Pine Avenue. It's a former bakery where I was being held up with a certain amount of frequency. How about just a little bit about this facility right here on Buffalo Avenue, Eric, if you could. Driving down the road here, now coming inside and seeing it for myself, this is a real interesting use of a space that had been here for a while.
Yeah, it used to be 2 different motels owned by brothers. I'm not sure the exact year, but that when we had bought the one side of the building, and then a year or so after, or a few years after, bought the other motel, and then connected them down the middle with a walkway. We are Niagara County's largest homeless shelter. We have 40 beds, 40 to 45 beds. We also serve as Code Blue in the winter months for individuals. We are also one of the largest community kitchens, and certainly the largest food pantry in the city of Niagara Falls and Niagara County. We have community missions. There's a lot. I think we were talking the other day. We're up to like 22, 23 different programs that community missions operates, from homeless to ex-offender based to SNUG to residential programs for the mental health population, youth programs. We have a home for youth in Lockport. We just recently opened a transitional housing here in Niagara Falls that targets youth. So we just have an abundance of programs for individuals. And this building, like you said, driving by it, it looks like it still looks like the motels from the past.
Right. The Ivanhoe and the
Hiawatha.
Right. Right.
But there's a lot here, and there's a lot of love for the community and support for the community in this building.
Yes. And then the final question, then I'd like to use this in a lot of our interviews, and I'll throw this one at Hassan. What does Niagara Falls need? What does it need?
To me, Niagara Falls need more love. We need more connection with each other. That's what we need.
Eric Bordner and Hassan Ford, thanks very much for joining us on Buffalo What's Next.
Thank you again for having us.
Yes, thank you.
And that will do it for today's Summertime Producer Picks episode. We would like to thank our guests, Denise Barr, Kelly Camacho, and Eric Bordner. If you missed this and you'd like to hear it again, a reminder that this program is a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or the new Amplified BTPM app. And each episode is available online on demand at WBFO.org. This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WBJ Jamestown, your NPR station. This is Charles Gilbert. Thanks for listening.